Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every week, as you know, meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today we're going to meet Tom Bates and learn more about DHS and his role there.
Yes, we're going to be talking about foster children in Oklahoma, which is how we've entitled the show. And Tom has an interesting role to fill, an interesting job to do, and we're going to find out about that. He is the special advisor to the governor for child welfare matters. So he is wearing one hat for DHS, another hat being responsible to the governor, and that really is a wonderful thing for us here in Oklahoma to have the kind of interest from the governor's office in what is clearly a problem in Oklahoma, and one, by the way, in which progress is being made in a very nice way.
Absolutely. Good to see the governor concentrate on such an important issue.
She has taken a very strong role and has made a difference.
And we'll meet Tom Bates, who's front line and center on these issues, coming up today on The Verdict.
One of the reasons why I moved to Rockaway is because it's such a diverse culture and different ethnicities. And my camera has opened some doors to really meet people that I probably wouldn't have gotten to meet without it. I'm Beth Perkins, I'm a professional photographer, and I'm Chickasaw. It came in as like a mini tidal wave. Everything sustainable had just disappeared in one swoop, and I just underestimated this power, and I realized really how little we are in this whole scheme of things and how quickly things can go bad. My community is still rebuilding, and for them to just show up out of the blue and just start clearing out my house was, I'm not one that likes to ask for help. So for someone to come and do that for me it was really touching and humbling. I've thought about the history of the Chickasaws and what they went through as far as relocating and losing their homes and having to rebuild and to thrive in the end after all of that is just a true testament to the Chickasaw strength. And I try and draw from that and remember that that's a part of who I am.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
It's a pleasure today to introduce to you Tom Bates, who's a friend of mine. He's been a friend of mine for many years, more years than we want to talk about. But he's here in a little different role today to talk to us about the plight of foster children in Oklahoma. Tom is special advisor to the governor for child welfare matters. He did his undergraduate work and his law work at Oklahoma City University. He, for 15 years, was an assistant attorney general under two different attorneys general, both Drew Edmondson and Scott Pruitt. And in the serving under Scott, he was named the first assistant in that office, which is the top assistant job. After leaving the Attorney General's office, he was named by Governor Fallin to be a liaison to Department of Human Services for child welfare matters, and he has been primarily focused on the plight of foster children and the recruitment of foster parents in Oklahoma, and that's what he's going to talk about with us today, I hope. This is his first visit on The Verdict. Tom, welcome. Sure glad to have you.
Glad to be here, Kent.
Tom, can you explain your position with DHS and the governor and how all that works?
Well, as Ken is aware, back in 2012, a lawsuit was settled involving child welfare, DHS, here in Oklahoma. And as a result of that settlement, DHS has been in the process of implementing something called the Pinnacle Plan, which is basically a total reformation of the Child Welfare Division at DHS. My role at DHS on behalf of the governor is just to make sure that is going according to plan, and making sure that DHS, any barriers that are there that the agency may be facing, in any capacity that the governor's office is doing what it can to assist the agency in getting those goals accomplished.
Where do you spend most of your time, and which areas?
Well, since I've been coming on board back in October of last year, shortly after that, the governor initiated the Oklahoma Fosters Campaign to recruit more foster homes. And I have spent a lot of time, most of my time, looking at issues surrounding foster care, everything from the process that foster parents come in, when they come into the system, when they are recruited, and the paperwork, the process, the background check, doing things that we can do to shorten that process, make it more efficient, make it more user friendly. I've also spent a lot of time meeting foster parents that maybe haven't had the best experience with the system, to hear those stories, because I think we have to hear those stories, and the governor believes we have to hear those stories because that's the only way we can improve the system. Trying to take that information and take it back to the agency and say this is what we need to do to get better.
What is Oklahoma's goal for foster home recruitment? How many do we need? How many do we have? How are we doing?
Every year under the Pinnacle Plan, there's been a different goal. This year, the plan was 1,000, and the exact number was 1,054 homes
To recruit
to recruit new for this year.
Yeah.
Because you do have some turnover every year. You lose some. So today, the good news that we have today is that we were able to meet that goal for the last fiscal year that just closed June 30th. We actually were able to recruit 1,070 new foster homes into our system, which is the first time we have been able to meet our recruitment goal under the Pinnacle Plan for a year. The co-neutrals will be giving us a new goal for this
co-neutrals are who?
The co-neutrals are the three outside persons that oversee and judge, for lack of a better word, our progress under the Pinnacle Plan.
Expert consultants?
Expert consultants, yes, that have a highly specific background in child welfare matters. So their assistance is invaluable to us in this process, but they will help us crunch those numbers and decide what next year's goal needs to be.
Is there a specific part of the state that needs more foster help, more volunteers to get part of this system?
Well, it really is something that's across the state. We need foster parents in urban areas. We need foster parents in rural areas. We need ethnically diverse foster parents. We need more African American foster parents. We need more Hispanic foster parents. We need more foster parents that are willing to take on larger sibling groups, foster parents that are willing to take on kids that have medical needs. A lot of the kids that when a child comes into state custody, that's a traumatic experience. Something has gone wrong in that family for a child to come into the system, and so that's and a lot of those children have severe issues with abuse, whether it be physical or sexual, and they need a lot of counseling, a lot of therapy. So we need foster parents that are willing to engage in that type of high needs therapeutic foster care. It runs the gamut, and it's. I think going into year 2, we will be focusing more on rural areas, sibling groups, ethnic diversity, and things like that.
Is the administration, is it always through the county, or is it done is the state divided up into larger divisions?
Well, DHS Child Welfare is divided into 5 regions, and Oklahoma City and Tulsa are regions among themselves. We have foster recruiters in each of those regions. We also have private agency partners like Circle of Care, Angels, Tallgrass, and others that help us recruit foster parents. They go in, the recruiters go to the family, guide them through a fairly significant amount of paperwork, as you can imagine, a home study, the background check that is, put into the system and administered, on that kind of regional level.
Describe for our viewers how a child becomes placed. Let's assume that there's a domestic violence squabble that requires the police to come out and take a look at it, and they see children in danger, and they pick up the children in the middle of the night.
Right.
What happens to that child from 1 a.m. on? I mean, how does that child get to a stable foster home?
Well, Kent, the first thing that DHS is going to try to do and hope to do is identify what's called a kinship home. That would be a relative, a grandparent, an aunt or uncle.
Somebody that's already established a relationship
that has a
with
relationship with the child.
Yeah.
But one thing that people may not understand is that a kinship foster home, to your point, is anyone that has a relationship with the child. It can be the school teacher, it can be the Sunday school teacher, it can be a neighbor as well. And so DHS focuses, first of all, they do everything they can to place a child with someone that the child knows, and we can expedite those background checks pretty quickly. If that doesn't work, then they have to go to a foster home. And one of the key parts of this plan and this initiative from the governor's office was to get that ample number of foster homes so that when that child comes into care at 1 a.m., there's just one phone call and the child can be placed. Historically, Oklahoma has relied a lot, as you know, on shelters. We had a large shelter in Tulsa, a fairly large shelter here in Oklahoma City, and other youth service shelters across the state. One of the major accomplishments of the Pinnacle Plan thus far is the reduction in shelter use. I mean, we are down to just a very, very small number of kids in shelters across the state. The Pauline Mare shelter in Oklahoma City is empty and it being repurposed for other purposes. We're down to, I think, maybe 11 to 13 kids in the Tulsa shelter, and hope to be repurposing that facility here in the near future. So getting away from shelter care and getting kids immediately into stable home-like settings that's what drives the Oklahoma Fosters Initiative.
Tom Bates is assisting Governor Fallin in DHS efforts. We'll have more from Tom right after this.
It's astonishing to think food production needs to double over the next 30 years to handle population growth. Thankfully, technologies and innovations made possible with oil and natural gas compounds are making nutritious crops more plentiful than ever. It's our generation's turn to help solve worldwide challenges. Let's imagine new ways to give Oklahoma's oil and natural gas even more purpose.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of the verdict. We're discussing DHS and the expanding role of Tom Bates, who reports to the governor on DHS issues. What are the numbers? How many kids in Oklahoma are under DHS care?
Well, today there are now 9,921 kids thereabouts in care. That is a significant reduction from this time last year when the number was well over 10,000. At one point, shortly after the settlement was reached back in 2012, the population of kids in state custody went up to over 11,000. So we have, DHS has done a good job of steadily chipping away at that number. But you know, when kids come into care, you want them to exit the system as quickly as possible, but they have to do so safely. We have to get them to what's called permanency safely. Last year, around 5,500 kids exited the system. About 2,250 of those kids exited through adoption. The rest were reunified with their families. A small number were guardianships were established. So 5,500 kids exited the system, but we're still at over 9,000. So that means we're still, you know, a good number of kids continue to come in. So, you know, one of the challenges is getting those preventive services into homes that are in crisis, and try to do all we can to keep kids from coming into care. That's really a last option. But when they do, to make sure that they exit safely. You know, I think that number of, like I said, over 2,000 adoptions, over 2,200 actually, says a lot about DHS's effort in that area, but we also, you know, that also says a lot about our judges, our juvenile court judges in this state, and how hard they have worked to help to get kids out of the system. I know judges that have had dockets devoted, you know, entire days, you know, to just getting adoptions finalized, you know, special settings and so forth. So it takes there's a lot of moving parts to the child welfare system. It's not just DHS. Courts and DAs play a huge part of it. So getting kids to safety, getting kids to permanency safety, it takes everybody's help.
What does the department do when a child is removed from a home because of mistreatment, maltreatment, neglect, abuse, whatever it may be? What does the department do to try to reunify the family by getting the parents some help on whatever the problems might be so that the child can return home? How does that work?
Well, I think, you know, a lot of people don't know that, first of all, there has to, you know, a child may be brought into care in the sense they may still be in the home with their biological parents, but DHS has said in order for the child to remain here, you parents have to agree to work some services. You have to get some counseling and some other types of services that DHS provides. All those kinds of issues, just basic parenting issues. Sometimes it deals with home repairs and things like that to make sure that the home is actually physically safe, environmentally safe. But when the child is actually removed and in custody placed with someone else, again, you know, a judge has to adjudicate that child as being deprived and being, and at that point the clock sort of begins to tick, and the parents are then, you know, a plan is entered by the court in most instances, in which the court says, parents, this is what you have to do. These are the things that I want to see you do in order for these children to be returned to you. And that unfortunately can be a lengthy process sometimes. And I think one of the things that Oklahoma is struggling with right now, quite frankly, is how long do we give biological parents to get their house in order, for lack of a better word. I think, we need to have that hard discussion. Policymakers need to have those discussions about how long are we going to let kids wait before we move forward to other options and other alternatives. Terminating someone's parental rights is one of the most serious things, one of the most serious exercises of state power there is. And so it's not to be done lightly. I'm not saying that at all. But, I think within 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, we should have a pretty good idea of whether parents are serious about making
Are they
change.
attending their counseling services? Are they
Right.
doing the steps that the state has
Exactly.
outlined for them?
Are they taking good faith efforts to work their plan? And if they're not, then those kids need to go on to forever families that are going to give them the support and that they need.
I know there's only so much DHS can do, but a young person, I'll use the term, graduates out of the system at 18.
Right.
Is there any effort to try and help those kids land in some sort of positive direction?
There is. There's a number of efforts. I got to a few weeks ago attend a youth conference down at OU of kids in the system that are 15, 16 years old, kids that we're still hoping to get placed, but that they may age out of the system. And that conference is based on things, giving them some tools and equipping them to make that transition. One of the classes that I noticed that they had was called Essential Documents. Those are things that we kind of tell our, that people that have parents know that you got to have your birth certificate and your driver's license and social security number. Kids that are in the system, maybe they don't understand what those essential documents are. So yeah, there's a lot of services that we're trying to provide these kids. There's a new program that's just been implemented within this last year. Youth Villages is a group that's come into the state and is working specifically with kids 16, 17 years old where it appears that they're likely to age out of the system, and getting them the life skills that they need to transition successfully.
What are the major challenges you are looking at that we need to address and solve the best we can, and what can our viewers do to assist?
Well, I think when it comes to foster care,
we only got about a minute.
Okay. If you can't be a foster parent, support a foster parent. Meaning, think about being a respite care provider. Think about providing. There's so many church groups now. The Oklahoma Fosters Initiative is really a full mobilization of the faith community in our state toward foster care, and so many of these churches are doing an outstanding job of groups like Life Church and so forth of supporting foster parents. Like I said, providing child care, material needs and necessities. So if you can't be a foster parent, try to find a way to support a foster parent.
Tom, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really
And thanks to
appreciate
the
work.
governor for having you do it.
Kent and I'll wrap up the show when we get back. You're watching The Verdict.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. I drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. We're wrapping up a show with Tom Bates, who is serving in a very important role in state government in trying to help Oklahoma do better with its DHS system, and under the watchful eye of the governor, working on adjusting a lot of the things that we needed to work on.
Yes, I think it speaks very well for the governor's office that she would take such a personal involvement in making sure that this area of state government is being carried out correctly, and because couldn't have a better beneficiary than the children of our state. And she's got her personal stamp on making sure it's done right, and I think everybody's profiting from that, particularly the kids.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You could see in Tom's tone and the way he chose his words just how thoughtful he's trying to make the process. It's a hard job, and it's got to be done correctly, or at least the best we can.
He's a great emissary in this position, and you need to be. And he fills that role.
We have some website information, or you can get more information on Tom and the work they do at DHS. It's okdhs.org. That's okdhs.org. And we have a website, theverdict.tv. We'll see you next week on The Verdict.